All right, we do have a show because we are totally live. Hello, 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 and welcome to Intercultural Spark, that show about the spark inside you that drives you to spark change through purpose driven businesses and life projects. And when I say you, I mean all of you, because anybody can do this. And actually, 99 point, I just read this back this morning, 99.9% of all businesses in the US are small businesses. So not only can a lot of people do it, a lot of people are doing it. So welcome to the show. My name is Deanna Schass. I am your host and also the founder and the BBL, the big boss lady at Intercultural Talk. So our guest today is Alan Headbloom. And Alan and I have known each other forever. He's an amazing coach and interculturalist. But actually, it's so much fun when you invite people on your show that you've known for a while. Because now I found out like all these awards he's gotten, and he speaks, languages, and lived in Brazil, lived in Rio for a long time. So we're going to learn all about Alan today and some things that I've learned from him. Before we bring him on, I want to show you our exercise of the day. Ta-da! Our flash exercise. So the flash exercise, because I'm also a group fitness instructor, flash exercise is a fitness exercise. Always good to work exercise into your day. I'm going to show it to you now because it has to do with our guest and the theme of today's show. So I'm going to do it, and then I'm going to bring on Alan to show what it is. Okay. So our I'm going to do really fast. I'm going to actually officially start our show. Then I'm going to do our exercise. So welcome to Intercultural Spark. All right. So, Alan, I'm going to have you do the exercise with me. You don't have to guess now, but you'll do the exercise. You can do it in your chair, actually. So I'm going to scooch back just a itty bitty. I love those core strength exercises. I think because they're so easy to do from your desk. So you're going to clasp your hands together. Okay. Clasp the hands together, and you're going to go side, side, and then come back center and come in and crunch. So you got obliques, obliques, and this is your abdominis rectus as you bring your rib cage to your pelvis. So one more time, it goes side, side, center, and in. All right. So keep that in mind, both for you and our viewers. Keep that in mind as we go through the show, and see at the end, I'll give you a chance to guess why I chose that exercise. All right. So, I did mention you are the founder of a show. Well, actually, why don't you tell us about the show? And then I want to share something about what you do. But the show, Feel Like You Belong, you're all about working with expats, people coming to the U.S. to teach them about, I guess, the norms, because we'll go into it's not everybody, but into U.S. American culture. So talk about the show. What is the show that you do, and what's your goal with it?
First of all, Deanna, let me just say thank you for inviting me on your show. I'm a big fan of the work that you do.
Oh, thank you.
Such energy and passion to it, and so that's just a bonus to listen to a smart, committed person who also brings good life, good spark to this.
Thank you.
There's so much darkness in the world, and if you're shedding light, that's a lovely thing. So thank you for that and the work that you're doing. And let me just give a shout out to your new book.
Oh, thank you. Wait, okay. I was going to say, I feel like on cue, I should have been able to do that. And indeed, as a good marketer, I don't disappoint. Oh, that's so funny. Okay.
So book projects are like birthing a child, I think, because there's a long gestation, and
yes,
but it's a labor of love. And I've got 3 grandkids who are on the cusp.
Ooh, okay.
So yeah, I need to be grabbing a copy of that.
Oh, fantastic. Thanks. Well, and you'll appreciate it because it takes an intercultural, intergenerational approach to grandparenting.
Yeah.
So,
Awesome.
All right. Wait,
Awesome.
we could talk about me for the rest of the show, but tell me about you.
So you would let off by talking about feel like you belong. And I've been doing this work for over 30 years. And for the longest time, the tagline of my business, because my job is welcoming expats and immigrants into the United States. So second language, second land, second culture, new, strange. And how do you help people fit in? So the tagline for the company for a long time has been feel like you belong. And then my brilliant wife, Kim Roberts, is a professor of film and video. And in the dark January days of 2013, she said, honey, we need to start a talk show. What you're doing is amazing stuff, but not everybody knows about this. And so, if you would ask me, 10, 15 years ago, would you ever be a talk show host? I'd say, no, are you crazy? But if you have a wise and energetic woman behind you, you say, okay, let's buckle up and hop on board. And it's just been a true joy to share the lives of so many amazing immigrants, newcomers, expats to this.
Well, and who are some of your guests? Because I've seen you've had like elected officials. I mean, you've had all kinds of people on the show. What's one that stands out for you?
Runs the total gamut. So, so two famous folks, Richard Blanco, who was in 2009 the presidential inaugural poet. And so he read an original poem at the inauguration ceremony.
Oh, wow. What's his name again?
Richard Blanco. He actually was christened Ricardo Blanco, but you come to the U.S. and things get changed around. But he's bilingual. So most of his life in South Florida. He now lives in I want to say Maine or Vermont, one of those small northeast states, with his husband. Remarkable poet, and grab some of his materials if you can. And again, I can share the link to that interview. Just talked about being an immigrant kid and growing up sort of in between cultures in South Florida, between Anglo culture and Hispanic culture. We interviewed Maria from Sesame Street.
Oh, fun.
And she just retired recently after 44 years in this role. And so she sort of aged into her role. And we talked about her growing up in the world of hard knocks in New York City. And but getting her start as an early actress on TV when they were looking for representation on TV. And, as we know, in the 1960s, there weren't a whole lot of brown and black people on TV, and Sesame Street said, no, we're going to represent all of the United States. So she represented, bravely and energetically Latina culture and had a presence, and talked about the brilliance of not only the representation on camera, but afterwards, because who really wields the power is the people writing the words for the people on camera to speak. So it's the producers, writers, directors who have power. So why don't we also get people of color in those positions? So those are two, fancy big name folks. But I had local teachers and small business people, a grocery store owner from Jordan. He and his brothers he commented 12,000 items in his store, and immigrants. I mean, if you, as a white folk, you're in there shopping, you're in the definite minority, because there are languages being spoken all over the store. And if you're not at home, you're looking for a taste of home. So that was remarkable.
Do you know what's interesting when you talk about, let's say, being white folk, is that as the majority culture, what I find interesting is, first of all, traveling to another country is when you realize how American you are based on the majority culture. But I have learned two things from your videos that I just never got, which one is I have a deeper appreciation of U.S. American football culture, like how it's played from your videos. But I'll tell you one, as a woman in business, going into business like the 80s, handshake culture. I never understood. It was handshake culture is such a male thing. It maybe not anymore, but in the 80s, like men would still take your hand and like they would kind of cup it, like you thought they were going to kiss it, and you'd be like, Or like men just wouldn't shake your hand. So then it's like, well, do I just be aggressive and just go in there? And I couldn't understand when they shook hands. Is it like at the beginning of the meeting, the end? So I found it fascinating because you did a whole thing on that, I guess, for people coming from other countries about handshake culture. So
One part of the TV show, in addition to the interviews, which ran typically 20 minutes, we would have little 5-minute segments called What's Up? And that's basically anything from, American English, tips on slang, etc., to, cultural aspects. And that includes, handshaking, making small talk, because from culture to culture, those rules are very different. And, there's a famous intercultural book called Kiss, Bow, or Shake Hands.
Yes.
And those are 3 different forms of greeting. And as you well know, from living in Brazil and being married to a Brazilian, those folks are kissing folks. And
oh my God, yes. And then there was like when you do, I'll tell you what was so weird about that. So there's whether it's 2 kisses or 4 kisses, because that was regional. But the one that really got me is that, and I still don't believe it, I've been told that even in business settings, like where you've just met someone for business, they'll still kiss. And I'm like, but
that's too intimate, right?
Yeah. So that's
Those get to make up their rules, right?
Yeah. So I find that fascinating. I'm just going to pull up for a minute. So you've got so on your website, you've got your past, so clearly your past shows and things like that. What about, you've also done a lot. I like when you break down jokes, like why is that so funny? Here we go. What'd you say? What's up? What's so funny? Yeah. So I know you've got the different jokes. What's one that you did that people were like, okay, that's just weird?
Oh my goodness.
Because different.
So jokes can, they often involve either plays on words. And if you're just learning English, you don't know the double meanings of lots of words.
Yeah.
And so we break down the humor, like, okay, here's what was said, but here's the second meaning. And once you hear that, then that's how that joke works. And so that's just one more reference, because you can be, really fairly fluent in your English. You can give, good, competent presentations. But then when people are around the water cooler, somebody makes a joke, all the Americans are laughing and you're going, what's so funny?
Yeah.
So to help folks who are, really at a fairly high level, but still not there, that's really the next and last level. And, as you know, as a speaker of whatever level Portuguese you consider yourself, it's when you get a joke in your second or third language, it's just doubly funny, because first there's the humor, but then you're yourself like, I got this. I understood.
Yes. Actually, what's even better than that, I still remember we had friends. They are Russian born from Germany. They came for our son's bar mitzvah. So if you can get more multicultural, but Arkady, the husband, made a joke, and his English was, he was definitely just a new learner. And there was something he said that was perfectly timed and really funny. And we all laughed, and you could tell he was like there was just sense of pride that he could play with the language enough to make a joke in another language.
Absolutely. Yeah. So you've arrived when that starts clicking.
Yeah, absolutely. So we had said today's show was going to be about sort of the rules and the bias. And the reason I want to talk on the bias is when you and I spoke leading up to the show, a couple things that I had mentioned that you were like, yeah, that's not for everyone. So you're talking about teaching cultural customs to, our American customs. How do you fit in the bias? Because people we have to understand that there's a certain norm. Like if you're teaching someone from another country, you can't start with, here's all the differences. It feels like you need to start with some basis. How do you navigate that to not put your own bias in, but to help people understand there's different ways as they adapt to U.S. American culture?
Absolutely. And we all carry around biases, from our backgrounds, and our parents and teachers sort of pushed us in one way of thinking. And then that's the way the world is. And that's not always true. And so how do we sort of hold back on those judgments to process what people are saying to us, and then say, okay, is this is this a personal behavior? Is this a cultural behavior?
Mhm.
And in my seminars, I like to give people the chance to analyze different behaviors and organize them either universal, cultural, or personal, because we all grew up the way we grew up, and our parents said,
Mhm.
this behavior, don't do that behavior. This is good, this is bad. And so we have these cultural blinders on, and then when the world comes at us, we say, oh, that's rude, or that's lazy, or that's evil.
Right, based on what we were used to. And oftentimes, I know I train with someone who will say that, he tells the story of his grandma who told him, sit down and you better behave. He said she didn't say like, cross your legs, do this or that. When she said you better behave, he knew what that meant. So yeah, a lot of the times they aren't written rules. They're really unwritten rules, which makes it even trickier when people from different cultures interact.
Sure. And an example from in that arena, my wife and I have just become fanatical fans of Ted Lasso, the Apple series. They've done 2 seasons. There's one more coming up, which we cannot wait for, but we've binge watched many times already. But it's brilliant because it's an American football coach gets a job coaching an English Premier League soccer team, which they call football.
Oh, interesting.
London. And so he and his assistant coach are American, surrounded by all kinds of Brits. And because soccer is a global sport, there are players from Mexico and Nigeria and the Netherlands and lots of other places, all playing in Britain. And so you've got this multicultural locker room. And one
that is cool.
charming moment was they were all in the locker room at halftime, and the coach was trying to give some, pep talk. And the one player said, the Dutch player said, well, I didn't play badly, but you played badly, to one other player. And which, we're all gasping.
I know. I'm like,
how dare you? And,
right.
And just gasp, in reaction shots of all the players in the room.
Sure.
And then this young Nigerian player said, "Oh, wait, guys, don't worry. Jan is not being rude. He's just being Dutch."
Mm-hmm. Interesting.
And, Dutch or Germans or Austrians, they tend to be like really straight shooters. They just really direct, because their assumption is you will want this feedback because that will improve your performance or your whatever. But Americans are fairly direct, but not as direct as some Germanic type folks. And then we even get a little annoyed, like, could you back off a little bit? But there are other cultures that are even more soft pedaling, more diplomatic, sugarcoating, and we're going, no, dude, just give me the feedback as U.S. Americans. So we all have these different levels of what's acceptable in terms of feedback and other kinds of information and interaction. So how do we hold back on those biases and say, oh, they're not being rude, they're being, Dutch or Japanese or Brazilian or whatever.
Yeah. No, I always know. I've shared this before, because the first time I went to Brazil, where it's just really common. I just still remember my mother-in-law and my aunt-in-law having a conversation of if I'd gained weight. Actually, they were probably saying fat. If I'd gained weight since the last time I'd been in Brazil. And I'm right there, right? So, but yeah, look, it's so funny. I'm still blushing about the conversation, but when you realize like that's just was a normal conversation for them.
And U.S. American culture, do that.
Yeah. Well, so you've lived though on 4 different continents and you've traveled all over. Is there what's one that's either surprised you or that you had a harder time to kind of adapt to, in terms of like an exchange you found living abroad?
Yeah. So I've lived for a year in Europe, mostly Germany. I lived for a stint in Brazil. I lived in West Africa, and then the bulk of my experience has been here in the U.S. Working with expats and immigrants. I think a lot of that depends on your own personal development. And frankly, when I was actually living in Europe and in West Africa, I was just super young, in my early 20s, and not to disparage the youth, but frankly, I wouldn't give up. To regain some like taughter skin, I wouldn't give up the accumulated wisdom of the decades, because I think you're curious in a more general sort of Disney way, and I think you start to ask more questions and be more analytical and self-reflective, like, oh, this is funny or weird or bothers me because we do things a different way. And so I think you need some of that experience under your belt to make you a better traveler and interculturalist, just the more you experience. And so, boy, could I relive those years with some more experience? I think I could have had, different experiences, different, and maybe deeper understandings.
Well, certainly self-awareness is the first, because that's the whole problem with culture, is you think that your culture is the right one, and then you use it as the gauge to everything else, which hopefully with experience you realize, no, mine is one of others. And so you start to think, oh, that's how they do it, or what can I learn from that?
Absolutely. And the joy of working interculturally is, my metaphor is, it's like a buffet line, so you've got your plate in life, and then you're going, oh, I like the way they do this. And I want a little bit of this for myself. And I like this. So, for example, I living in Brazil, and Brazilian friends and others, Latin American friends, I really appreciate just the warmth of Latin culture. And in Portuguese, they call it calor humano. Okay, human.
Okay,
right. Yeah. And but then on the flip side, what I've really appreciated in my working with Japanese over the years is that they are much more group oriented, other oriented, and it's less about me and more about us, creating this harmony, what Japanese call wa. And for example, if you're out for dinner with Japanese, there's a bottle of sake in the middle of the table, you don't have to worry about refilling your little cup, because the other people on the table are monitoring everyone else's consumption. And if you're running low, someone's going to reach across and refill you. And so refilling your own is just kind of, I won't say it's rude, but it's American, right?
Sure. And on the flip side, if you don't want to drink a lot, you better not finish, because they probably will refill it. So it's just those little.
They will also read that. Oh, your glass is still at a full level.
You clearly need more. Yeah. Well, now your Brazil trip, and I hope this is okay, I'm saying this because your Brazil trip sounds like as a grown up, can I just say this? So you were between marriages and you're like, I'm just going to Brazil. And you were in Rio, right? In Rio or in the north?
I was going to correct you. I've been to Rio, and it's lovely sightseeing, but I was in where many of my friends consider the heart and soul of Brazil, and that's the Northeast, in the city of Salvador.
Oh, in Salvador. Okay, so I've been to Salvador.
Bahia.
So great. But I got to say, if you're going to have, this is my words, not Alan's, so just to be really clear, but if you're going to have a midlife crisis and run off someplace, like Brazil and Bahia is, oh my God, because it's so gorgeous. And Bahia, so there's a lot of, actually, you tell me your impression of Bahia, and then I'll tell you what I was going to say. We'll see if they match. Yeah, what's so magical about Bahia for you?
The heart and soul of Brazil, and frankly, so it's in the north for people if you're looking at the map. So Brazil sort of has this one part that bumps out into the Atlantic Ocean. And so that is the northeast of Brazil. And also because that was closest to Africa, that was the landing point for a lot of the transatlantic slave trade. So a lot of northeastern Brazilians have more African heritage. So it's just a darker region than the southern part of Brazil, which is a whole lot of European immigrants there.
And you're talking about darker, literally, in terms of skin color.
Physical, melanin infusion. So northeastern Brazil is where southern Brazilians go when they want to go on vacation, when they want to relax and enjoy, food and music and culture. And so
beaches are gorgeous. It's electric too, because there's so much of the mixing of religion, like the candomblé and the macumba with the Christianity. There's we were there on New Year's Eve. It just felt like there was just this electricity in the air that you could just feel when you were there. So definitely a great place. How long did you live there? That's a great place to go.
Only 3 months, but the really great thing was, my other great experience was I got to hire a language coach. and work one-on-one with this wonderful
Oh, while
woman
you were there?
while I was there.
Oh,
And
fantastic.
so it gave me great insights into my own work because I had a chance to sit on the other side of that language learning
Oh, so you
and
hired someone like the
to
same
coach,
that people
me
hire you here.
the work that I did.
Amazing.
Right,
Okay.
right. And so I
So
had a
one
chance
thing, oh, sorry, go ahead.
go ahead. No, go ahead.
Oh, okay. I like the host who just cuts people off. I always get that. I have a colleague, actually my co-author, Jerry, after my show will be like, yeah, you cut Alan off. So I apologize. Alan,
Yes.
it's
Oh, good.
because we only have like 5 minutes left. And I should make this a statement, but I'm going to make it a question. So you've won like these amazing awards. So you've won like from the Hispanic Chamber of Commerce, you were the community champion award. So what goes into that? You're clearly just involved and engaged. And wait,
So
wait, what makes you so special that you got those awards? That is not how I wanted to ask the question, but on a short period of time, tell me about it.
I'm truly honored that to be recognized by the local Hispanic community and the Vietnamese community in Greater Grand Rapids. And I say this really humbly because it's only been over the decades that I've grown to understand my white male hetero privilege, able-bodied privilege that I carry with me wherever I go. And
I said, yeah, you got it all, right?
I recognize a lot of people don't carry that privilege because they don't look like me, or they don't have my accent, and et cetera. And maybe they don't do handshaking the same, et cetera. And so my commitment and my increasing commitment is helping others fit in, not to change who they are in their soul, but help them at least get along better in the community, in mainstream community, so that they can be their own amazing business people or artists or whoever they are, and to open the doors and make more people welcome. So again, it's this feel like you belong theme. And so I longtime member of the Hispanic Chamber of Commerce, and working to share businesses, direct Anglo folks to Hispanic businesses. Because I lived in West Africa, I made a very conscious effort to include Africans on the TV show, because typically when Americans talk about overseas, or let's go travel, they talk about Europe. Well, my grandfather had this same, eye color, skin color, and that's not, white folks are the minority on the earth. Let's talk to other folks who have just very different experiences. So it's this, how do we open ourselves up? And then I had, in 2017, had the chance to create a documentary about Vietnamese refugees resettling in West Michigan. End of the Vietnam War, when the war was hugely unpopular in the country, and a lot of Americans didn't want those people coming here. But Gerald Ford said, no, we owe them a safe landing place. And so in the 70s, then again, another wave in the 80s and 90s, folks came from here. And so I, in this short half-hour documentary, told the story of, through interviews, 9 different Vietnamese folks from their 30s to their 70s. Some are in Vietnamese with English subtitles. Just talking about those struggles, because if you
living in the Grand Rapids area, or was it national? Grand Rapids. Yeah.
But it's a microcosm of the wider Vietnamese refugee story, resettlement story. And then by extension, we had in other decades, we had Bosnians resettle here after the Bosnian genocide. There's a genocide in Congo. And so we've got now Congolese.
Well, of course, and people coming from Afghanistan now, and from Ukraine. I mean, it keeps happening again. Yeah, again and again. Unfortunately, but yeah. All right, one last quick.
Welcome.
Yeah, no, it makes sense. I know our like Highest is an organization that's a Jewish-based organization that looks to how they welcome immigrants to the U.S. So there's a lot of different organizations. I think if people want to get involved, or they could also find you, because it sounds like you're actually taking that initiative as well. Including actually, and we are out of time, but I know you're later tonight, just even like starting at home, you're in a new neighborhood and you're having all 25 of, I guess, all your neighbors over just to kind of know your own neighborhood, which I think it starts local and builds out. Quick question on
Absolutely.
just as a business owner. So the whole thing about Intercultural Spark is that people doing cool stuff, living fascinating lives. But what I love is everyone talks about big business and what that does. There's people actually, you're making a living, you're supporting a family, and sometimes people have kids in college, all kinds of stuff. And the world is changing. So I'm curious also, just tech. Is there one tech thing as tech changes? Sounds like you're doing a lot with video editing. Are there any other platforms or things that you're using, or some kind of trick that helps you manage your business?
Yeah, the challenge of being a solopreneur, as you understand, is you have your set skill, your set of skills and talents, and there are a whole lot of things that you don't do very well. And so how do you lean on other folks? And so, for example, for the TV show, this is my brilliant wife who, it works in media and teaches university students how to do that. So leaning on her, definitely doing the TV show, leaning on my university aged interns, because they're just much more savvy. And, frankly, I don't care a lot about that. And I'd rather focus on what I do well, and then sort of outsourcing or doing bartering.
But I mean, that's actually the point, though, is finding those tech things, whether it's hiring someone else, or there's a lot of platforms that are scaling now down to small businesses as well. So it's not even caring as much as I think as knowing, like, oh, let me get someone to do this part. That's Alan, that's a smart business choice, which is to identify the things that you do well and then outsource the others. Which also, by the way, which is also small business owners making an impact through hiring, through, teaching people how to do business for the next generation. So, yeah.
I always ask clients, what's your preferred video chat? Because, 99% of my work is online coaching. So people from other continents or people from other states. And so I just ask them, do you use Zoom? Do you use Skype for Business? Do you use Microsoft Teams? And then, if they're using some platform I don't know, I have to learn that. So
you'll accommodate, which is the core of interculturalism. How do you do it? I'm serving you. Let's work with what you do.
Absolutely.
All right, my friend, it's time to guess what the our flash exercise is. Flash exercise. So as you recall at the beginning of the show, so for you or anyone watching live, we did the exercise where we went side, center, in. Why do you think I picked that exercise for you and this show?
Well, that's a question for me. Great, thank you.
That was a real question. Yeah, that's where I'm like, is this on? Yeah, okay.
We're ranging our experience, from this group across to this group, and then what do you gather in to incorporate into your own being to make you a more whole, more complete, more competent person. That's my guess.
I love it. Actually, I love it because it makes people realize, interpretive aerobics, there is a deeper meaning. That was really deep. So I was thinking, I love it. So here, we bring everything together.
Do I win?
So yes, you win my undying esteem, and
I accept.
So actually, let me tell you what I was thinking when I did it. What I was thinking was, so oblique exercise, baseball. So it's baseball. Like everyone thinks, oh, it's American, it's baseball. And then it's like, whoa, not everyone does the same thing. Break your stereotypes. So that's what I was thinking. But I know I didn't want you to hurt yourself doing that. So, but yeah, so because everyone thinks of all American, apple pie, baseball, but actually there's all kinds of things that make up what means to be all American. And so it's, time to really kind of suck in for a minute and realize that's one option, but there's many others. Oh, they could play together. So the first time you do it, it's that. The second time it's look here, and bring everything in. So it's a whole it's a whole narrative. All right.
That was fun.
Well, thank you so much. So, Alan Headbloom, if people want to find you, you said you're happy for people to email you at alan@headbloom.com. But I encourage people to watch the show, both to your show. Feel like you belong, but also I have found some of your tips just trying to figure out my own culture. I
Mhm.
find a lot of your tips really helpful, to understand, particularly like when we look at the business environment. So thank you so much for
Oh,
being on the show.
it was a delight to be with you, Deanna. Again, you have such great energy and continued success sparking change in the world.
Oh, thank you so much. And everyone, we will see you next week with Cindy Kinsley from the Hungry Monkey Baking Company, who had to send me snacks twice because I ate the samples before the show. We'll see you next week, though. Ellen, thank you so much. Don't go anywhere.